This podcast is for the ones who know they were rescued, but also know they were resent. Saved by grace, sent to live different. We're not rebelling against God, we're rebelling against everything that keeps us from Him. We'll talk faith, identity, purpose, leadership, and what it really looks like to follow Jesus in a loud and noisy world. We'll dissect scripture, we'll exposit it, we'll grow, and we'll stretch our faith. Welcome to the Daily Rebel. Yo, welcome back. We are day 5 of the Daily Rebel, and we're closing out the week. In James chapter 1, verse 14 through 18, it says this: "But each person is tempted when he is drawn away and enticed by his own evil desire. Then after a desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death." Verse 16, "Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. By his own choice, he gave us birth by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of first fruits of his creatures." So check this out. James has made something perfectly clear. God does not tempt anyone. He tells us where temptation actually begins. It doesn't begin out there. It begins in here, in the heart. We are broken, fractured, beaten, burdened sinners when we enter into this world because of our first parent's sin. And so here's the deal. Here's the anatomy of sin. James uses this fishing and birth imagery. He says drawn away and enticed. And these two things are hunting and fishing terms. Sin doesn't force, it lures. Then he switches metaphors. He says desire conceives, sin is born, sin matures, and then death follows. This is the progression. You see, temptation is not random. It's relational to desire, and desire is powerful. But James doesn't end with death. What he does is he ends up pivoting to the Father. If you think about King David and how, man, when the text in 2 Samuel says when kings go out to war, it was assumed that kings would always go out at a specific time. And it says when kings were supposed to be at war, David was laying in the bed. He was eventually walking on the balcony. What happens? He ends up seeing this beautiful woman named Bathsheba bathing. And here's where it started. He was supposed to be at work. So it started with laziness. And then he got bored, so he walked and strolled up on his palace, and he started looking. And after looking, he sees Bathsheba. Then he starts lusting. And then he brings Bathsheba to his chambers. He impregnates her, finds out who her husband is, which is Uriah, one of his alpha dogs in battle. He puts him he gets him drunk. He tries to get him to sleep with his wife to cover it up. Then he puts Uriah on the front lines of battle, has him killed. And then eventually Nathan shows up, the prophet, calls him on it. And then David confesses his sin, but the consequences of sin are catastrophic because him and Bathsheba lose their son. Because the last L there is he lost. So he went from laziness to looking to lusting to lying to losing. That's the progression. And so here's the deal. Let me get y'all 3 points when it comes to this sin. Is that number one, sin starts with misplaced desire. James doesn't say evil actions. He says evil desire. Temptation hooks what you already crave. The enemy doesn't invent desires. He exploits them. That's why temptation feels personal, because it is. It's not just about behavior. It's about appetite. And so listen, Redeemed Rebels, y'all, we don't just fight sin. We have to examine our desires, because here's the deal. What you feed grows. So it's not just saying I'm never going to sin again. At some point, you've got to go find the root of where the desire is. So number one, sin starts with misplaced desire. Here's number 2, is that sin is progressive, not passive. Again, notice the progression of David. Laziness to looking to lusting to lying, and in the end, he lost. So it goes from desire. David had a desire as a man. He had concubines, he had wives, but he just wanted a little more. So it started with desire, and then it leads to sinning, and then it leads to why we need the gospel, and that's death. And here's the deal. It doesn't happen overnight. It develops. Sin grows when it's entertained. It matures when it's justified. It kills when it's normalized. So James is warning us, if you don't interrupt desire, you will eventually deal with the consequences, because temptation likes to whisper. Death, it shouts. But listen, Redeemed Rebels, we don't need to play with what kills us. And again, Jonathan Edwards says, be killing sin, or sin be killing you. I believe it was him or one of those older theologians. But then that leads me to number 3. God is the giver of life, not the author of death. James pivots. He says, don't be deceived. That means there is a lie in circulation. And the lie says God is withholding, God is unfair, God is restrictive. It's like when Satan in the garden asked Eve, hey, did God really say you would not be like him? And so Eve starts thinking, maybe God's holding out on me. But he says the opposite. He says every good and perfect gift comes from above, from the Father of lights, the unchanging one. Shadows shift, God does not. And here's the ultimate gift. He gave us birth by the word of truth. Sin gives birth to death. God gives birth to life. That's the contrast. Desire that is misdirected, it leads to death. But grace received by the gospel leads to life. So listen, you are being formed by something, either by unchecked desire or by the word of truth. So the question isn't whether you're being shaped, it's by what. You are either being discipled by culture, your desires, or by Christ. So here's the Daily Rebel question for you. What are you feeding right now? Desire or truth? Because Redeemed Rebels, we don't just resist sin. We receive the Father's better gift, and the gift of God always leads to life. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Daily Rebel this week. Excited to jump back into it on Monday. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Before you go, if you want to help other people be equipped to be redeemed rebels, give us a follow and share it around with your friends. We'll see you next time.